Hi everyone, Sandy Trefger here with a tutorial for my winter Solitude album that I designed for Country Craft Creations using Authentique's Solitude collection. So here is the paper collection that I will be using. It's the 12 by 12. I did use almost the entire package with all these pretty patterns in here that you see. I'm going to quickly go through these. You'll see the birds and plaids. And a lot of winter scenes with animals, animal footprints, snowy trees, snowflakes. Really like this paper right here. The stripes. Now, I don't use all the patterns in the album. I mix and match them in my preference. You can use whichever ones you like the best, and you can create this album using any paper collection. And I have shared a link in the showcase video for this album to the original album that I designed 3 years ago as a recipe album. So you can use this basic construction on how to make an album and make it any occasion that you want. But I do want to show you the pattern papers here that I will be using. I used this cardstock sticker sheet, and then I did use some. I used mostly the red. This is what I received in my design kit, but I did use this red here to supplement my pages. I also used the navy blue artisan cardstock and some of the cream colored cardstock artisan from Country Craft Creations. And I did use a full pack of the navy blue that I have here already ready to go. And I probably used like half a pack of the cream colored cardstock. I also used two chipboard 12 by 12 chipboard pieces and the score tape full-size sheets for making my covers, as well as score tape in 3/8 inch and 1/4 inch, and of course the art glitter glue. This is my favorite glue. That you can order all of this from countrycraftcreations.com. So let's get started. I have my chipboard already cut, and you do need two pieces 10-inch by 7.5 inches for the covers, and one piece that is 10-inch by 3 inches for the spine. I went ahead and pre-cut down my score tape sheets, so I have those ready to use. And go ahead and cut your piece of cardstock that is 11 inch by 12 inches, and we're going to seam this together with just a line of glue on the 11-inch side. So go ahead and line those up and seam them together. This is what we're going to use to wrap the cover. And burnish those seam lines really good. And then go ahead and set that aside. So now grab your chipboard pieces. I'm going to go ahead and remove my tags off of them that I had to tell me what I had cut out. And we're going to go ahead and prep these if you are using the full size sheets of score tape. Now you can also use the narrow strips of score tape, or you can use glue to attach this to your cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up on the video and go ahead and apply this to all my three chipboard pieces with this score tape. In any sections that it's not big enough, I will piece it with a smaller tape to make it be completely covered. Take your cardstock piece that you seam together, and you're going to lay out your chipboard pieces. Now you want to make sure that you lay it out so that that seam fits right in the center of the spine. So you're going to have some excess paper on probably both ends that you will trim off after you attach this down. So I'm going to go ahead, peel the backing off, and I will put down the center one first, right on that seam, and then I will take my 1/4 inch score tape and attach it to the cardstock up against the chipboard on both sides of the spine so that I have a placement guide and spacing guide for my two covers. Once you have your chipboard stuck down to your cardstock, go ahead and take your ruler and either your X-Acto knife or your scissors and trim off the excess paper on the ends. I'm going to leave mine at about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch on each end for wrapping the chipboard covers. Next, fold up your cardstock over onto the chipboard on all 4 sides to get a good crease where it's going to wrap around. Use scissors to miter cut the 4 corners on the cardstock. I like to cut out the squares made by folding the cardstock at a slight angle. So you'll do this on all 4. Fold and check each corner to make sure that you don't have any excess. And if you do, fold it and go ahead and trim it off like I'm doing here with the scissors. Next, apply score tape to all 4 edges of the cardstock. If you want to use glue to attach this down onto the chipboard, you can do that as well. Sometimes I use glue, sometimes I use the score tape. Since some of these are more narrow, I'm going to go ahead and use the score tape because it'll attach down quicker. So either way is fine. And before I actually attach these down, I do pull up some of the score tape backing on those seams there by the spine so that it's not stuck down underneath the cardstock. Apply a line of glue along the top edge of the chipboard onto the cardstock, pull the backing off, and working with one side at a time, wrap the cardstock over the edge of the chipboard. And burnish it down real well with your bone folder and along the top edge. And then go ahead and gently burnish that seam, the cardstock down into the seam where it sticks to the score tape that you have peeled back between the seams, on the seams of the spine. So go ahead and do the other side as well, and then you will do the 2 ends. Once your cover is wrapped, go ahead and gently fold that fold line of the spine and the cover. Just be real gentle with it. You don't want to tear your paper. If you're using artisan cardstock, it's a very strong cardstock and you should not have a problem. Take the two 9 1/8 inch by 9 1/2 inch pieces of cardstock that you cut earlier, and you're going to seam these together so that you will have one long 18-inch piece. So you want it to be 9 1/2 inches tall by 18 inches wide. So you will just use your glue, and the same way that you did for your cover cardstock, you will seam these two together. I'm just double checking my direction, make sure I have the right height. So I'm going to lay these out and take my glue, and so you end up putting glue on about 1/8 of an inch space here, so that when they're seamed together you have an 18-inch long space or sheet of paper. This will go inside of your album cover. So go ahead and burnish that down really well, wipe off any excess glue, and use your bone folder again to burnish that seam line. Take your album cover and peel those remaining tape backings off to expose the score tape. And you can use your score tape sheets, or you can use glue or score tape. I'm going to go ahead and use glue. I do think it's probably better to use the score tape on this because it will put it down smoother, but I am going to be covering mine with patterned paper, so I'm okay with it if it's not exactly as smooth as it should be. But for yours, I do suggest that you probably use the score tape sheets or score tape to hold everything down, and you want good coverage on it. So go ahead and take this and then turn it over and carefully attach this to your inside sections. Center it top to bottom and side to side. So just have a tiny margin, probably about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch showing on all 4 edges. So you just want to center it, make sure it's all in there. And if you're using the glue, burnish it down well with your hands and with a bone folder, and leave it laying flat to make sure that the glue does dry really well underneath there. So give it a good burnish to make sure it smooths out. And then once it's dry, you will gently score or burnish into those fold lines like I'm doing here. You want to get that fold line, but you've got to be real gentle. Use a blunt side of your bone folder, not a sharp one, to go ahead and get that burnish down into that score tape. You want it to, the cardstock, to attach down into the groove where that score tape is. And then go ahead and gently fold it up. Select the pattern papers that you want for the outside of your cover and for the inside of your album cover. While I'm not going to be showing you how to pattern every page in this album, I do want you to go ahead and pattern the cover and the spine area on the front, on the outside, and on the inside so we can add our pages. So I'm inking mine real quick. Choose an ink that coordinates with your paper or that you like. It could be black, or I'm using the more of a navy blue color on mine. And then you're going to go ahead and attach these to your album on the outside. So I've decided to use the birds. And so I'm going to put one on the front and on the back, and I'm flattening out my cover to make it a little bit easier to glue these on. So apply a good amount of glue and attach this to the front on the back. On mine, I do cover the spine section with one patterned paper, and then I add a contrasting on the back side in a narrow strip in the center to kind of give it some contrast. This is optional. You do want to measure the width of your spine section to make sure that yours might be a little bit different. It might be like an eighth of an inch wider or more narrow than mine to make sure that you're putting the pattern paper where you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down on the outside. You will also want to pattern the inside of your album, which I have done here, especially the spine area. If you're not ready to do your outside cover, that's okay to wait at this point, but to put your pages in, you do need to have at least the spine section patterned here, and you will see that I have two different patterns of paper here, and you don't want to cover your fold seam line there. So you'll make your album where it folds up easily, so you just pattern the spine section there. So let's go ahead and set that aside and get ready to work on some pages. I've paused this segment of the video to go over with you my style of pages and hinges. Now what I do is what I call a flip hinge. This is where the hinge for each page is scored with the page. So all of your pages are made a ½ inch wider and then scored at a ½ inch. Some people are leery about this because they feel it might be weaker than other pages. I have never had a problem. However, I do use artisan cardstock, which is a very heavy cardstock, and it seems to hold up really, really well. If you're concerned about this, there are some who have taken like Scotch tape and taped the front and back where the fold is on each page. This does make it a little bit shiny. You could use the matte Scotch tape, which might help with that. That adds some strength to that. Or if you really have a problem with it, you can adapt these pages to go on a regular hinge, like the Stack the Deck or the separate hinge system that you see online. So you could do that. You would just cut your page to 7 inches wide versus 7½ inches wide. Construct it the way I did mine, and then you would just put it on your hinge that you attach into the center of your book. So you could check different videos. You can check with Tamara's YouTube or on her Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations for her video on how to make that type of hinge. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I make mine, and we'll get these pages ready. To create your flip hinge base page like I created mine, you will take your base pages and you will put the 7½ inch side in at the top of your scoreboard, and you will score it a ½ inch, then burnish that really well. And then also, because this is a page, you will fold it back and burnish again so that it does fold back and forth. This helps train that fold line. And as I said, I use the artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations, which is very sturdy, and that creates a really sturdy page for me. If you're still uncomfortable with that, then you can cut your paper down to 7, not have that ½ inch hinge, and use a regular hidden hinge binding system. After you've created and scored all your 6 base pages, then go ahead and pick up the 10½ by 7 inch cardstock pieces, and you're going to put the 10½ inch side into the scoreboard at the top, score it ½ inch and 10 inch, then fold and burnish both sides towards each other. This will create your sleeve. So when you take your base page, you will glue this to the top and to the bottom of your base page, and that creates your sleeve. And then I will also, if you want to, seal the bottom, but it's not necessary if you have that hinge there, because it will fit down onto the page. But I usually go ahead and add a little line of glue. So now we're ready to assemble these pages. So I'm burnishing all of them again to make sure that everything is folding back and forth well. So you see how it will bend back and forth. And the artisan cardstock does not tear. At least I've never had any tear unless there's a manufacturer defect. If you run into anything that tears, because normally it does not tear very easily. So I am getting all these prepped. The hinges, these will be what you attach the pages into the spine of the album with. So go ahead and burnish all of them very well. And I'm just double checking that hinge to make sure it folds back and forth. And then go ahead and score, fold, and burnish all the hinges for the sleeves. And as I said earlier, these need to be scored, folded over so that they face each other. This is what you will attach them onto the page with. Okay, now for the assembly. Take a page, and I have the hinge to the left, and what I'm going to do, you can either glue this on top or you can actually wrap those two half-inch ones. So I'm going to open mine up and I'm going to put it on top because you don't see this hinge. Now if it bothers you that it may catch in there, then I would do the wrap. There's two ways. I've done it both ways. I'm okay with it this way, but if you want it smooth on the inside, then glue it to the, wrap that edge there. So I'm just lining mine up. I like to be able to open this up and burnish at least one side. I know you can on both of them. So make sure that it's lined up okay. You don't want it on crooked. So I'm going to go ahead and burnish this hinge, clean up any glue that I got on the inside. And then I'm going to put glue on the other hinge. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Just make sure you line it up evenly on the right side and along the fold, along the cut edge of the page. So it should fit, if you cut them correctly, should fit pretty accurate there along that edge. So go ahead and burnish that. And then I'm reaching in with a spatula just to double check, make sure I don't have any glue, and kind of burnish that last hinge in, because I want this to be a pocket. So that's why I've left the one side open for now. And so this is your hinge side, where you have the half-inch sticking out, and that's how it's going to fold back and forth. So now I'm taking my art glitter glue with the fine tip and just putting a very fine line of glue on the inside of the pocket along the fold line. You don't want it coming out over your fold line, so wipe off any excess glue and burnish that down. So that seals your pocket. And you will do all 6 pages the exact same way. Now in my original album that I did 3 years ago, I only did 5 pages, and on this one I ended up doing 6. So you'll see where on the spine there'll be one gusset that's only a 1/4 inch instead of a half, but that's going to work out okay. So now take your inside of your album cover where your spine area is, and if you're more comfortable with it, take a pencil and mark you a placement line about a 1/4 of an inch from the top. So you want your pages going in a 1/4 from the top and a 1/4 from the bottom. So I'm just going to mark it on one side, but you can certainly mark it on both. So this is how you're going to attach your pages in, and I'm just double checking to make sure that I allowed the correct amount. So your pages are 9.5, your cover is 10, so that leaves you a 1/4 inch to the top and a 1/4 inch to the bottom. So you do want to get these in as straight as possible, and I am just deciding how I want it to go in, which way I want the hinge to go. So the front of my album is to the bottom here on the screen, the back is at the top. So I'm attaching the first one, I'm applying glue to the 1/2 inch hinge part only, And I'm going to attach this hinge along that fold line on one end and along the inner part of the spine. So you want to make sure you get it straight. So that's why that placement line is really helpful there on the bottom. You do not want to put this hinge over the fold of the cover. You want to leave that open and then burnish this all down. So that's page 1. You will take page 2 and you will carefully line it up with the other page along that placement line so that it butts up against the first page. So again, you put the glue and put it down as close as you can to the first one and as straight as possible. And then burnish. So go ahead and do your first 5 pages the same, and then I will show you on the last one what I mean by it's a kind of a bonus page that I added in. So the spine was not quite wide enough for it, but I was okay with just having the 1/4 inch there on that one. So I'm just adjusting mine a little bit before the glue sets to get it back in as straight as I can. As you're adding your pages in, make sure you stop between each one and check that it is straight on the top and the bottom and the sides. You want your pages lined up before you put the next one in. So here I'm going to go ahead and put another one in, and as I get close to the one that is a bonus page, I will show you where you will end up having just a 1/4 inch space between the 2 pages. So this will be the last page where you will have that 1/4 inch. So this one is also going to have the 1/2 inch, and it's lined up to the previous page. Now if you're more comfortable using score tape, you can attach your pages with score tape. The good thing about score tape is you can use undo if you get your page in crooked, where you can remove the page safely, not harm your paper, and stick it back in straighter. If you're using glue, you have a few minutes to straighten it up and line it up correctly, but once it's stuck, it will damage your paper if you pull it out. So that is one tip that you might want to use, especially for beginners. You might want to use score tape at first until you get more comfortable with attaching pages and things into your book. I like to use the art glitter glue because it's really strong. Score tape is strong as well, but I have had some pages come loose, especially if you have a lot of humidity. So sometimes you have to use a little bit of glue in with the score tape if you're having problems with that. So this is where I realized that I made an extra page. So this should have had 5 pages instead of 6, but I'm not going to waste a page. I am going to use it, and I like the album with 6 pages. So I positioned this down, and I've decided on this last page to make the 6th one fit. I'm skipping over for right now, and using my pencil guide, I'm going to attach this page right along the fold line of the album cover so that the 1/2 inch is to the left. You can see it there by my left hand. When you flip it open, just make sure you get it really straight and you see the space there. Now this is where I'm going to be putting the 6th extra page, making it fit in so that it doesn't go over the fold of the cover. So you can either trim this down, or I'm just going to go ahead and glue this 1/2 inch in and put it onto the spine, and then let a little bit of it glue down over the 1/2 inch of the last page that I've already installed. So I'm getting my glue on there, and I'm going to line this up just like I did before against the previous page, the 1/2 inch hinge. Line that up really well. Keeps wanting to pull to the right on me. So line this up, burnish that in, and it sits over the 1/2 inch hinge a little bit of the last page, which makes you have a 1/4 inch gusset between the 5th and 6th page. So I'm just holding this. It's kind of making it a little bit more difficult to hold down, but I'm checking it to make sure that everything still folds correctly before I actually burnish it really well into the book. So now I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish that in to make sure that it sticks down. And my previous page needed just a little bit more glue under that hinge. And now all 6 pages are in. They're all lined up and ready for our pockets. So we'll work on that in video 2. We'll work on some flaps and some pockets and finish that up in the next video. And as you can see here, when the album is standing up, all the pages line up really well. So stay tuned for tutorial 2.